Dipper Mark Show,
I'm Emma Daly Klein.
and I'm Michael Sparling. I have a middle name, but don't use it. You have
Mhm.
two last names. That's the thing.
And I did that originally because we actually had more than one Emma Klein in our real estate deal. So,
Oh, really?
mhm. Yeah, in our little association. So, yeah. How are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I have a few things to talk about, but I wanted to. So, challenge is rolling, first of all.
No.
Michael, it is so crazy that I was able to do it all by myself.
Used to
Right?
be a team of what? Two, three, four, five of you?
Mhm. So, yeah, 5 or 6 people plus a bunch of other people. Now, when I say by myself, there is the fact that there's a bunch of people in the challenge that are helping. So there is that. Meaning that they're greeting people, they know what the heck is going on, and so that really helps. But yeah, I was
Setting
thinking,
the culture.
yeah, and I was thinking about that though Sunday. I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing that I was. Thank God. So, and you made it in.
I did.
Congratulations. Good morning, Susan. What's the
Right off
temperature
the bat.
there?
Yeah, is it warm there? It was 40 here yesterday.
Oh. So
We
are you
have like less than half the snow we had. It's half of it's melted away.
wow. That's pretty hardcore. Yeah, we had snow yesterday briefly up here, but it's just enough to just be so gross, you know. Oh my gosh. But doesn't look too bad overall. And of
We
course,
we had freezing rain, so like 4 inches of ice on everything. But thankfully, the warmer temperatures last couple days. So
yeah, yeah. Warm and lovely. Oh, good. Congratulations to that. Corey.
does that mean riding? I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Does that mean riding? Huh? She she's so tough. I love to see their gang in the snow. It's so fun. It's so fun. And then, I was coaching Michelle yesterday morning. She's down in Texas and it was so foggy. I mean, it just looked like it does here. And she was in a t-shirt. I'm like, must not be that cold. Yeah. Trails only. All right. Well, at least you have an awesome gang. Do we know? Hey, from Black Forest, Colorado. Snow here, blowing snow later. Oh, 5 to 8 inches. Yeah. Oh, that's quite a bit. They had snow at the top of Mauna Kea in Hawaii, like 8 inches the other day.
Oh,
So Kip was showing me video with some Hawaiian friends and I looked it up and I was like, wow, that's so cool.
Stephanie's in Hawaii right now.
Which one? Stephanie, too?
Step two.
Yeah. Must be nice.
Must be nice. She sent me a picture. So the local YMCA has free passes for our township for whatever reason. I saw the link for it and I forwarded it to Stephanie and kind of our neighbor chat deal. And she sent me a picture of the beaches of Hawaii. I said, rather go swimming at the YMCA.
Like, you're not my friend anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, horsemanship. So let me just say what is on my mind this morning, and then I would love to hear you talk this week, right, guys? We want to hear Michael talking. I did have a very impactful experience this week where I was leading some aged trail horse, just from, kind of A to B. I didn't know the horse. I just assumed that the horse would be leadable, even though I did ask, is the horse halter brain? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And then this thing was so dangerous. Not in terms of like aggressive as a mean horse, but like just how a horse can learn that the sweet spot is on the person when they're scared? Oh my dear Lord. So you know what it made me think of is the contrast between doing the baby horses or the wild horses and also, all our talk about liberty and the levels. And so I was thinking about how really you can think of liberty, understanding, at the very least, understanding the concepts of a horse being yieldy at liberty, as like a basic safety, the big three at Liberty, like move off, yield the hindquarters, face up. So I wrote a blog. You guys can check that out at emmadailyclimbblog.com. You'll see it in the previews there. Anyway, so that's what's on my mind overall. And had some good rides on Novella for the challenge so far. River, River, you guys, my gorgeous little smoky black grade mare that we all know and love. Lots of you guys. Look, she's so fat right now. Oh no. I mean, oh no. To the point where I'm like, we have to trot like this week. Oh, that's one of my projects. It's just because you know why? Because she looks at me like this, and I'm always like, "Do you need a little more? What do you need?" Oh, and this one, that's the bad one. So I'm sure it'll be fine, and but it is definitely the next emergency for me to deal with. Anyways, what's on your guys' mind, first of all? What are your thoughts on what I just said about liberty for safety? You remember that story about Nancy and the rescue horses? Do you remember that one, Michael?
Nope.
So our buddy Nancy, right?
Hmm.
She was fostering, temporarily fostering a couple rescue horses. This was years ago. And she went to get them out in the field and they were wound up and they came straight to her like a magnet and ran her over yeah, because that's where, unfortunately that's like it's just a misprogramming
Yeah.
of the whole experience. So good morning, Chelsea. Oh my gosh, I was thinking about you. I was gonna reach out, be like, how's it going? Because oh, it's so easy to get demoralized on the in the bad weather. Even when we're on this side of it, right, you guys? Yeah. Okay, Michael, what are your thoughts? And
Well,
we
I
don't have to
mean,
talk about that, but
Nancy's situation, I mean, not plenty, but enough experiences of horses kind of learning to get in close and then wheel and kick. Um, showing up with that pattern. Uh, you better know how to safely, with whatever tools you have, be assertive enough to get and keep that horse out of your space to be safe at liberty or loose. And then, just the same on the end of the lead rope, you need a different set of skills to be assertive enough. Have the hindquarters, know how to bump them off of that, find your angle, anchor up, whatever. Still, the capacity to be assertive enough to drive for it to really be safe. Um, in in that situation where the horse sees you as target or safe spot in an unsafe way. Maybe
almost like
theoretically safe for them. I mean, in their mind, safe for them, but certainly not safe for you.
it's so
Um, yeah.
look, I have tons of experience, tons of experience. And like, you're just in so much danger. If you have 1,000 pounds of irrational movement that thinks that they should be on you, I mean, can you get more dangerous than that? It mean, is it what like if a horse was gonna run you
Or
down?
even, yeah. I mean, that's intentional, not intentional in a malicious way, but intentional in a this is what I need to do to survive. But even where you're not on the radar, just as
Yeah,
dangerous. I mean, some of
that
these
was so.
horses that have learned to pull on you and the shoulder goes in. I mean, you might as well be a blanket draped over their back. They're going to run right through whatever's in their way. I
I
think I mentioned a while back that, there were some horses on the farm that for, you know, years, or just for quite some time, where it's like, this horse is just a pain to be around. You walk out in the pasture and you got to kind of get up in their face to get them to move out of here, because owner's not super attentive or isn't out a whole bunch. The horse isn't handled as much as some of the others. um, Owner's not super assertive. And maybe a year ago, I was like, there's a few of these that used to be kind of a pain to just kind of walk through their space, and now, like, they understand, you know, you're as good as the lead horse, and when you are in here, you are the lead horse. Even if I'm getting away from so and so, I got to be aware of where you are and go around. And I go to walk around the feeder, and it's maybe just a hand up saying, hey, clear out. But for the most part, walk right through there. Um, and so it's not the case, and the horse sees you as irrelevant, particularly if they're, like you said, beside themselves, or just completely, what was the word you just used?
Irrational.
Wasn't
Yeah,
irrational.
I
Was it irrational? Yeah, completely irrational. That you're just you're not even there in their mind, and they're big enough that you just easily get bumped right over.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Uh,
and again, it's just crazy how many people handle horses, and that they aren't regularly, high percentages of them mowed down. You know,
yeah, and you kind of wonder. I guess so. My question to you is, why was I thinking? Why did I right away think
I
about?
don't know.
And I think part of it is because I
Oh
guess
wait, why did you think about turning the horse loose and
yeah,
how that resource might help? No.
because here's the thing, Michael. Looking at that horse, there's no bend in the horse. You could just see it in the muscles. Like there's
Mhm.
just no bend in the horse. So if I even had the horse on the end of the lead rope, my shoulders hurt just looking at this horse, you know, because it's going to be stiff as a board when it goes by you. So if you have
Mm.
it at the end of the lead rope, you guys, and the horse has to get off of you, and then you have to send the forequarters. You have to create some movement, and obviously you're limited with the lead rope as to where you can go, which might be totally necessary. For instance, Michael and I have both seen this at big horsemanship clinics, buck brannaman clinics, where someone has a horse in the foundation class on the end of a 12-foot line, which is what they should be, and of course you have to hang on to your horse, but the horse being so irrational, so upset by accident, but they're trying to like operate right. And then pretty soon run right over the top of them. Okay. So that's a little tricky to fix. And you have to be able, my point is you have to be able to yield the hindquarters. You got to have them move off, get off of you, right? You guys, like that is the quote unquote drop dead baseline. You may not run me over. It's just impossible. You cannot get around that one way or the other, okay? So they have to move off. But then what? And so this is where I was thinking, Michael, I would ask you, what are your thoughts on, because this is my thing. I would much rather have a fence handle that at first. If it was going to be so stiff, if it was going to be 1,000 pounds rocketing by, because this one is stressed out, right? So then it's not going to leave soft. It doesn't know how to leave soft. Not the horse's fault. I'm not, whatever the why ever this is happening, the reality is by the time you get the horse off of you and to leave soft, the bending then of the horse and yielding the hindquarters is going to involve 1,000 pounds hitting the end of the lead rope.
More than that, because you have velocity. If
Velocity.
you have to have created velocity in order for that running into the rope to create any sort of bend. Otherwise, it just stops them cold. You might have some velocity and it's still going to stop them cold. You have to have enough velocity. And that bend is critical because at a horse's neck, body, and hind leg, you got well over 12 feet there. Um, so you are vulnerable in that case to a very high degree if you aren't capable of influencing that and willing to take that pressure on.
Well, and then what are you going to do? What are if you want to hold the horse on the end of the lead rope, then what are you going to do? I'm just this is the reason I guess
Tie him
I'm
to the wall. But that takes
why.
another set of skills, and I mean, it's another passive way of drawing the line, right? Your round corral fence or the fixed point that the horse cannot move, setting that boundary clear as day, secure, not hard on your body,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
easy to get in trouble there too, because like you said, how many of these horses that are prone to run over you or crash into you, be beside themselves, are great at leading up,
Well, right.
which
Hmm.
you
And so
kind of want that going a little bit before you time the wall to kind of stack the deck in your favor, that if you're slightly out of position, you're not going to send them reeling backward and
yeah, and this
bring
and
that in.
a good point. And so as high as you can tie them, the better.
Hmm.
Is definitely the secret. And then of course the high line, you could do it off high line or yeah. And the saddle horse, I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, no wonder Gary says that he wouldn't even do the job without a saddle horse. Because he
Hmm.
knows how to use his saddle horn to dally and slide, move his horse around, they're not but also, Michael, he would not do that in the big arena. He would do that on a round bend because if he has to slide rope to the point where the horse is gonna, then the fence is gonna contain them. So I think of all the things, that get stacked against a person. Like you said, it's amazing how few of us get killed or maimed, you know, in relationship to the whole thing. But this is, I guess, part of what I was thinking when I was thinking about having a horse loose and why that would be good for a person because it's not very intuitive to be like, okay, if a person can't even handle the horse on the lead rope or however you want to say that, maybe they're not educated enough to have something constructive going on with the horse loose, so, with say at liberty, um but here's the thing, it will show you about yielding. Like, is the horse yielding or not? And then when they move off, are they escaping or are they yielding?
And it
And
leaves it up to the horse to, provided kind of what you're looking for, but it leaves it entirely up to the horse. You have no real control of the yielding of the hindquarters. It takes timing of release, setting it up, letting the horse do that by moving their own body rather than both the velocity and the 1,000 pounds coming up against you as a stable-ish anchor. Even on a saddle horse, it's not as solid as a wall. There's a little tug
well,
there, and then your horse is taking the velocity, and depending on, yeah, how much you get the ribs moving away and the shoulder moving out right off the bat by stepping into the horse, and I mean, so many things, but you leave it entirely up to the horse to go, well, take as long as it takes, and we'll just keep setting it up till you find that. So,
and yeah, and I guess the pattern of behavior or at least putting it on the menu. And I suppose the contrast too, I was pondering, is the contrast between, let's say, a clean horse or even a semi clean horse, that They don't know anything else. Let's just take the wild ones that I've been taming this last 6 months. It's like they don't know any different. Now, neither of them were difficult in terms of getting to move off and yield or even square up like we would think of with flour. You know, so definitely not uh, unsafe, but just to show those three basics, the three like move off, yield your hindquarters, square up. Some people say face up. Cowboy terms or terms that we're used to in horsemanship land is kind of get them squared up. You have to say the kind of part too if you want to sound right. Kind of get them squared up, you know. And that's not necessarily an easy task either.
Mhm.
I was playing with that with Revlon. Oh, I have a cute funny story about Revlon. She's such a character. But I was kind of playing around with that in the big arena. She knows how to hook on, but I'm also trying to squash in her turnout time like yesterday because it took me so long to get there, the weather and blah blah blah. And so anyway, but really focusing like, okay, yeah, you need to yield your hindquarters, but let's keep at this until you yield them, and then come on straight
Kind of
and get,
square up.
yeah, two eyes. It's oh, the mule, Feather, who loves me. It's kind of an interesting deal because her little donkey side wants to come side on. Like, and that's just a donkey thing. The horse is much more apt to wanna, but her friendly, like, "Mom, I love you," and she'll come up straight, and then shoo, 'cause that's just how they are. They kinda, wanna lean on you. So, and, like, scratch me and love me, it's like her love language. I'm like, "Yeah, here's the thing. I will move to the side of you." But that's where Michael with Feather, yield again in the yieldy frame of mind, having her move off from steady pressure laterally so her shoulder kind of moves. So she's like, Mom, and be like, "Er," and then I'll turn your head and then we can, I'll pet on you. Also doing both sides, I've noticed with her, right? It's so easy for her to get one-sided on that and balancing that. But it is a funny because she's not stressed out. She's not trying to be overly dominant. But you watch the donkeys, definitely a thing. So no,
So, no, I'm just scratching.
oh, oh, I see. Yeah. Well, let's say good morning to
Being
Julie.
a donkey.
Katie, are the girls with you? Am I going to see you guys next month? I need a plane ticket. Side note, I realized that this morning. I'm like, I better buy a plane ticket. Lisa. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I thought Lisa, actually, you were a good one. I was thinking that I would want to ask about that. It's kind of funny. Lisa is one of one of the gang who's had a lot of liberty experience. You know. So, you have any stories about that?
Well, I mean, already briefly mentioned them, but there's certainly a couple that the more you tried to drive them away, the more they knew to turn around and back into you and start firing back. So it's certainly in those cases, I don't know, like we just detailed, whether you're on a saddle horse, whether you're loose in the wrong row, whether you are on the end of the lead rope, tied to the wall, all of it takes a skill set to be safe in those situations where the horse has little regard, either beside themselves, aren't seeing you, see you as the safe spot, see you as someone to say, piss off, you have no jurisdiction here, get out of my space. Um, all those situations without some skill, trying to change that is dangerous without knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. And what do you guys think? Because it's funny
And
how many.
and the hard part is it's not safer to not address it. it's just dangerous all around. Because one might be inclined, because you're trying to help them through it, and the horse is actually, then going to those behaviors, whatever their learned behaviors might be, and it's like, oh, this is more dangerous. Why am I even attempting this? Like, it's better to just avoid it and hope you don't get run over. Like, well, you're learning a new skill. It is somewhat risky. Let's make sure you're learning it in pieces enough to be successful at it. Yeah.
Susan, you would be another uh, expert, to kind of talk about this sort of.
So it's-
What was that? You were thinking that too.
yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to hear, your thoughts, Michael. Any of the approaches have risk. Yeah, and it sure puts the instructor. Side note, it puts the instructor at a lot of risk too. Just because, like, I'll just say from my perspective, having to get as firm as it takes when a horse has learned to push into the lead rope. Let's say you are asking the horse to go out and around you guys. Or even if how I broke my collarbone is the horse was not yielding at all. So when the chips are down and I had someone blocking me behind, so I couldn't step back to get out of the way. Horse is like it's just a nicest horse ever. She wasn't even grouchy, you
Yeah.
know. And but then to get as firm as necessary when it gets that far down the line, it makes the instructor look bad and puts our business at risk. So then what are your
On
choices?
so many levels, right? It,
Yes.
your personal risk, your liability risk looks bad in front of larger group, offends person who sees their horse as little baby. Um, Liability of trying to help the owner with it and them getting hurt. I mean, just all the way around.
I
And
mean,
then if it gets really extreme, they're running up against panels, or, you know, you're having to tie them off to a fence just to get any version of control, or to a wall to get any version of control. There's risk there, and, to injury to the horse. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart, this line of work. Um,
yeah, especially when it comes down to that. And you know how sometimes the phrase is you're safer on their back? And that could come from all different things, like especially one that's going to kick you or purposefully run over the top of you or something like that. If they're not going to buck you off or lay down on you or flip over backwards on you, you might be safer. Additionally, I bet these horses are reasonably safe-ish in a lot of circumstances when you're on their back. They're not going to line you up and run over the top of you. However, I also suspect that maybe one rein to turn the horse loose to base might not work, either. But yeah, it's a pickle. And so I had one horse last year. I think I told you about it, where I was like, "Let's turn the horse loose at Liberty," and that was the in a round pen. Turn the horse loose. It's funny. I don't know. It's hard to um, change using that word.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
because
worthwhile.
because it was so insane how pushy he was on the lead rope. And pushy sounds like it's the horse's fault. That's, I guess, once again, the part of the reason it's such a contrast right now is just because I'm totally obsessed with the wild horses. I mean, and the source code. That's what I was thinking of with doing the. It's like they let you just work right on the source code. There's nothing else to do.
Hmm.
And there's nothing in your way, right?
That and yet you're having the donkey side is quite interesting too, because they do have a bit more of, well, generally on average, much more of the fight if you're being too imposing or unfair, or having them feel trapped or attacked. So, talking about the horse that has learned to kind of line you up in a defensive way, in a getting to you to back down way, you can create that, even though source book is a lot more neutral. Source book isn't as clean in one direction on a mule as it might be generally on a horse, or or even a stud
Mhm. Yeah,
over a
kind of,
mare.
but kind of though. I mean, it sort of is. And remember, we have Revlon as part of this whole thing, who is a horse. So she and a very like,
But you've commented on the difference,
oh, for
and
sure.
yet, right there you're going, which is also part of the background on that is you have a great deal of experience, maybe not with mules, maybe not with particularly wild mules, but with equines, understanding angles, understanding, pressure and release, reward, connection, all of these things that takes it in an appropriate direction that makes it seem, you know, flow like water, and the water just naturally flows in the right direction. You
But
know,
that is true.
you run them up against a fence and your pressure,
Mhm.
which depending on the mule can
Oh God,
feel in a lot of space, like you said early on with feather, just being on the outside of the round, or with
flower. Yeah.
flower being on the outside of the round corral was a lot of pressure. Or a wild horse too, that is just, then they're up against the fence, they're thinking about crawling over it, or the fence is high enough that's not crossing their mind, but now they're going, do I have to protect myself? And
You know, here's the thing. As you're talking, it makes me think about maybe part of the deal is that with a clean horse or mule, there are so many choices on the table for them, and the more you don't disturb that and you just encourage the right choice, everything can
Mhm.
go really, really seamlessly. But like with this 20-year-old horse that is dangerous AF under certain circumstances, what would be unwinding of that would be to sort of refresh them in terms of their choices
Mhm.
versus like Revlon and even flour. Now, you guys, there are so many times over the last little while taming flour where it's just like, oh, thank the baby Jesus gods that she doesn't have anything in her mind solidified in terms of defense.
Mhm.
She lets me pet her now, even loose in the arena. So cool. But so it's interesting how instinctually protective I have been about Revlon in particular, the horse. She's very, very easy horse. I mean, I think. Uh but she has she's pretty wild still compared to other people that have had their horses for a little bit longer. But I don't care about that. What I care about is in the time allowed, am I shepherding her towards what she needs to know for my safety, for her safety, for my fun, for her fun, for any excellence? Like, am I shaping that in a way that the base layer is correct and doesn't, to the best of my ability, does not get messed up? Because I know I have to undo some of those things later. I don't want to. Now you would do what you had to do if you had to do it, right? But I was wondering about that too because I guess I don't. Well, one of the thoughts that I was going to ask you is, am I being too crazy about it? It's like, how much undoing do you have to do? But here's when you put these base layers in, they are there. And if you want to redo them, there's the digging out of it, like we've talked about with Gary digging stuff out, is the next level epic skill level that you need to have to actually get that out versus just build a bridge across it with your relationship like I did with, Vivian, and hopefully I can do with Rook. It's like Why why do that to yourself if you can avoid it, you know? And I've gotten the, "Oh, you're being too, oh," you know, and I'm like, "Mm,"
Really.
because if you have a good bass player, it's I don't know. So tell me what your thoughts are, and then we'll read your girls' comment. Morgan, good morning. Lisa says,
Um,
yeah, you go ahead, Michael. He'll forget, Lisa.
no,
I'll
I
read.
mean, certainly you don't want it on the menu anywhere. I mean, so many things you don't want on the menu. And depending on what they are and the horse, some will be easier to reset and take off the menu than others. You can have a horse that's kind of learned to push through the rectangle just because the rectangle hasn't been super defined, but they're super responsive. And when you define that rectangle, like, no, this is a boundary, find a way to stay within it. I was helping someone yesterday who that's all it was. Like, if you just say, no, stay on this line and are fairly direct about it, he'll stay on the line. And you'll come through there a couple times and voila, he's within the rectangle without a lot of pressure or conflict coming up against the sides. And there we go. But if it's a little bit loose, you're not defining it, he scoots out over and over again, well, then that he feels like there's an open door there, right? So that can be a pretty confirmed pattern. But when you have a horse that's generally very responsive, just needs a little support, like you can shape that up much more easily than a horse who is generally a little more thick skinned, generally is a little more mentally inclined to be like, tell me what to do. Just like thinking a Hancock or a draft type that's like, you don't just bark me around and firm up and I just go for it. Like, I like the ones that are light on their feet, right? Some you have to create that and breed type, breeding in terms of mental
Yeah.
kind of um I don't know the word I'm looking for. The mental dignity is one that I like for those horses that are just like, don't talk to me that way. You put something in there, even the fight of you trying to bark it at them. Well, it's a lot harder to get them to a spot where they're going, oh, okay, we'll work together. I mean, they want to get along, even a horse like that. So you change your presentation, it can certainly come through a lot quicker, but you can make that margin for error thinner on your part as a leader, as the one directing the ship. You can make it thinner by um, forcing yourself upon them or by inadvertently teaching them to duck out of the rectangle and then having to now tell this horse that kind of feels like those doors are open. No, they're not, over against the horse that's fairly, or if it's, a panic thing, or if they're just very calculated. If I turn my butt toward you, you back off. If I sit back on this rope, I can break it loose. I've done it however many times. If I, you know, rock it out of the trailer, if you don't set it up to where they feel they have to, and yeah, so much of it is the setup. And back to what I was referencing earlier, all of these things, when you have a horse like that, have a degree of risk and require a comparable level of skill to the situation you're facing. And avoiding, and this is what I was saying with the mules, they'd be maybe more inclined, depending on the degree to which your presentation sucks, to go into defense fight mode rather than flow away like water. Um, So I mean, it behooves you to be freaking amazing with animals before you get an animal, right? But you know, that's not reality. You got to get in there and hopefully get a horse that's safe and get one that matches your starting point in terms of skill level, but also in terms of personality, and comfortability being assertive. Like you can grow together in that as opposed to someone who's kind of wishy-washy, has a hard time being assertive, especially if the horse has a sour expression and they take that personally, or the horse does try to intimidate a little bit and they're like, "Ooh, I'm not, it's very uncomfortable for me to be this firm." Well, you better get a horse that you don't have to be so firm with, and then you can practice being a little bit firm where need be and getting results. And then that builds your confidence as the leader that can step in there and gradually, you know, work with a horse that has more um, inclination to push back if you're real passive about it. And then, you know, your
Hmm.
coach can be like, this horse is different. You better dig a little deeper. Not saying you got to be aggressive here, but this horse isn't buying it. So
Yeah.
I kind of rolled through a lot of things there, but uh, your skill dictates your success, and the feeling you offer dictates your success. So, as much as you can say of these horses that are a clean slate, it can just flow. It can also flow in a very backwards direction. And then, you're not from having done anything wrong because you did the best you could, having to clean up the pieces, and now kind of maybe spending years undoing something that you inadvertently put in there or someone put in there in whatever minimal time they might have had with that horse. So,
And
I mean, because you could also say, why get a horse that's out of balance? Or why get a horse that's downhill? Or like, it's just so much work. Start with a perfect specimen and then it's all easy, And some people, that would be their starting point. Why would I try to develop this horse into something? Sure, it'd be capable if I took the time, but it's not naturally inclined that way. And you're going, yeah, bring it on. This is interesting. How do I optimize this movement? How do I help them move more balanced, more correct, more engaged, more whatever? So, you know, not everyone's going to have the clean slate or the skill or the perfect specimen.
and even if you start with that,
It's easy to take it in the wrong direction.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, super uplifting, encouraging show here. It's so easy. Just out there and do it. But the reality is, it's rewarding. Get out there and do it. Work with good information. Work with someone that can help you, that has a feel that you appreciate, and start with a horse that's reasonable. Don't go get a dog that attacks other dogs as your first dog.
Yeah, yeah. And I was also thinking about the timeline. Because like looking at the horse that I actually handled two different ones, um, that were the same deal. But it's like that horse is, of course, I would think that it would, you can unravel that and rebuild. But
Mhm.
let me tell you, this is not, I don't envision this happening in necessarily, and certainly not if, depending on your skill level, in one session. And then I was thinking about how, the chatter, I think I mentioned this to Buck or Gary or I don't know who, but I was saying, like, I love having your example and knowing what's possible and of course then I can try to emulate as much or as little as I can of that, but that's a lot of chatter in your mind too of like, well,
Mhm.
I've seen this happen in 2 seconds and blah blah blah, blah,
Mhm.
and
How
then
did they do this? How can I accomplish this? What is the factors that are different? And yeah.
Mhm. But you could fall in love with the process and have that be what you do is be like, well, I love this horse, this is my jam. Okay, that's fine, but you might need to ratchet it pretty far back and definitely invest in some great coaching. And another thing I was thinking is the it's a great example, this particular example of a horse, turning, just whatever, figuring out for one way or the other that running you down or being on top of you is acceptable or preferable or whatever. It's a good example of the rubber meeting the road, because the philosophy and the dream and why we're doing it is very real, right? Our pursuit of true unity, this is a real thing. And yes, we would want the whole thing to be built on developing that feeling between the horse and I, between the horse and, us. And that would be the way you build it. Okay. But the reality of having 1,000-pound prey animal that needs to take care of itself when the chips are down, whenever they might see that, if you walk up to the rump and they might think the chips are down, or they might be fine until you take them somewhere, whatever, when the chips are down, there are certain like practical requirements that supersede whatever ultimate dream we have. Is that,
Mhm.
yeah. Corey was just saying it's so interesting that this topic came up today. I was just thinking in the last 2 days about knowing how much to explain the horse to stay out versus come in closer when loose. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing I was thinking about, Michael, because it's been a while, not that long, but it's still shocking when the horse is like, I needed to have that horse on a lead rope for like literally 60 seconds. If it had worked. That's how little I needed to do with this horse in terms of like what needed to be accomplished. And there was just, my point is that getting a horse yielding to some degree, and then you're wanting to teach some movements and get them to hook on to you. Like that's what I've overall emphasized, right? And that's what's really pretty to show. That's good for our businesses to show the videos of that and to teach that. And and I love it. We all love having the horse connected to us, right? And it goes from playing around with your horse loose to catching them to riding Grand Prix, whatever. Okay. But you're right, Corey, because and Pat Pirelli used to say this is all about balancing drive and draw. I'll credit him for that, because and Linda too. But I remember specifically a situation where Pat said that. I'm sure he has said it a million times, but I have a picture of the day and where I was when he said that. Because of course, it's easy for all of us who love horses to want that the most. And I do see it a lot of times with these wild horses, not with the experts who have done several because they have experience. um but maybe somebody who just wants to get the halter on, who just wants to be able to pet him, who just wants to, right? Of course. But what about the other base layer? Or what about the
The
other?
larger picture.
Hmm. The other things, like just the practical stuff that you need, is simply practical. So
Well, and there there's so many ways to skin a cat too. You know, several appropriate, some less harmonious, and like you said, less well-rounded. Some are going to be potentially more effective at just getting in there, but then you're having to regain ground to take it from there. Some it might take a while to get in there, but you have so much more latitude toward all the other things as you get in there. Um, and with lots of experience and lots of skill and resources, um, like a saddle horse, skill with a rope, different things can really shorten that timeline and still keep the door open to a horse just slotting right in to still being open and available in so many other ways. You know, it being well rounded.
and the yielding, of course, the yielding being soft and not escapey,
Hmm.
right?
Well, and that is a bugger of a thing. You know, Corey was just saying I've definitely emphasized too much draw and not enough drive. If you're, probably erring on that side, Corey, because there wasn't the draw that you wanted initially. And now you're going, okay, now how do I balance this out again? Because I had to put this a little bit more on the menu, but I need it to be a little bit more even. If you have the opposite, this horse has an inappropriate amount of draw. Either they suck onto you in an escaping way, or they, you know, rush into you and kind of come right into your space, or they just want to crowd you and think about kicking out. And like all of these scenarios where there's too much. Some of those would be draw, others would be just crowding. And you're having to emphasize, no, drive, get away. And finding that spot or that balance where it took a bit to really say, no, I need you to commit to going out and around me. I don't want you to be here all the time. Like, don't escape this movement by um, uh, reacting and coming in an escaping way. Commit to being out there, settle in. And that can be a real bugger to get that and then have the horse go, oh, but I am supposed to draw, because then when they draw, it's still a little escapey, even though you've started the commitment of stay out there. And so then it's still escapey to come in, even though it's not so like constant maybe or not crowdy. And then you're having to go, "Oh, but not yet, not quite like that still." And then they're like, "Ah, screw it. I guess I'm just supposed to run away from you," which similar to what Corey's experiencing in the reverse, the horse starts to have the idea that, okay, and now it's all about running away from you. And you're going, no, 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 no. Not it. And that can take a good bit of time, even with some skill, to let the horse sort through that and make the decisions and add up the data and come to a conclusion, okay, I am to keep going, and I guess I come in like that and that's not quite it, but we're repeating this enough and the escaping is we're still going, right? The escaping isn't getting me where I want, either escaping in or escaping out. But that can be a spot where it's hard to trust that it will come through when you're in the middle of that,
Mhm.
right? Because you're like, ah, this now they're not wanting to come toward me, or I feel like I have this pattern of escaping, and how do I interrupt that? And then you do sometimes need to stack the deck back toward connecting, even if it is a touch on the reactive or escaping side, just to put that on the menu. Yes, I do want you to connect. And then let's go back to work. And I mean,
Yeah, and like let's say
once again, we're back to sure helps to have a lot of feel and experience.
I start. Who was joking about that, Joanne? Joanne Gillespie she was reading the rectangle document, you know. She's like, she was just exasperated, of course, by how easy it is to say it. And it's like, where's the app for that?
Yeah.
Michael and I used to say that all the time around Buck. He'd be like, well, we'd ask a question. He'd be like, just do what I do, or just how I feel. And we'd be like, oh, where do I download that? You know? Yeah. And I also think about situations where, let's say, you know what, Corey, I would have to say, I should, as a leader, take some responsibility for that, because I've shown you, you know, at Horsemanship Insider and the membership platform, like I've shown a lot of hooking on because that was sort of what I have needed with those horses. I'm going to go back and do it again with Rook, actually. But Rook's going to be a good example because um I've just recently seen this where people think, because let's say they have a wild horse and they can put the horse in the arena and they can walk up and catch it, or they can, you know, yield the hindquarters and the horse will take a few steps towards them, or come to them because they know they're going to get food, or you know, whatever the deal is, and they can halter them, and that's great, very important. But when you then start to say, okay, can you move off now constructively at liberty, can you yield the hindquarters and come back? And they can make all sorts of cool liberty things out of those components. It's just drive and draw, and then the lily pad and the sweet spot, you know, wherever you want it to be. That's all there is to it. But you know, as soon as you put the drive in there, that's where you can see, okay, well, maybe I have too much of one or the other. Do you remember Karen Rolfe had that cool she did a graphic that I just loved. She's such a pretty artist. But she was talking about oscillation. You know, I think about that. So what you try to do is you have two things. If you don't have the middle, what you want yet, you know, you're getting these two things. So maybe you have too much draw, maybe you have too much drive, or you know, you get one or the other, and then you can oscillate between either one until you get to the middle, because you're crossing over the middle all the time. Um, and sometimes, if like, let's say this is the middle and this is too much draw, like way too much draw, you know, well, in order to be able to go back and forth to find the middle, you might have to go like a lot of drive, and then repeat, you know, until you end up kind of, so there's a balance, or what's the pendulum, you know, there's a balance there, that you kind of need equality on both sides. But the shitty caveat about that is like, there's an element of capturing the thought of enough equality
Yeah.
versus
So,
waiting till it manifests in its body, just for extra encouragement, you guys.
so one thing, yeah, exactly. Let's just make it easier. Uh, I just lately I felt like, I just hate to say this because but it's really gonna come together when you can see it happening before it happens. I'm like, you're late, but you're on time. I mean, yeah, they did it. Good time of release, but you gotta see it sooner. Karen Rolfe, one thing that kind of stood out to me, um, was at one of her clinics, and she was helping someone just with posture, and she said, you know, you don't realize, I don't remember how forward you are or how far back you are, probably forward. And it's like you need to experiment with the extremes, like get way too far back, now go more forward than you are, and feel what that feels like to like really be out of balance, because you are, but you don't realize it. And then you get way back here, and they're way back there, might not even be way back. It might not even be quite yet where they want to be on, you know, upright posture. So just that idea of kind of even physically in your body swinging the pendulum and experimenting with the whole range until you find that middle that feels right. And then similar to that, or what you're saying, the drive and draw, Julie's comment in July of, well, it doesn't matter if I release too early. I've released late for so long. Like, what's the harm, you know? So you're not sure you got it. You're not sure you have the thought, but just go with it and see. There's no harm in it because you've probably been releasing late
Okay.
for a really long time, right? And
What's
then,
the
and
harm?
there's other times where I've been like, you're releasing for so little that the horse is just kind of, eh. And I'm like, do a little bit more until you are clear. You know that horse has yielded sideways. You know the hindquarters has done more than the front end because you're kind of getting it from the horse, but the horse isn't trying. The horse isn't really feeling of you. Do enough that you can see it, and the horse will probably then go, "Oh, okay, that's what you want me to do. Like you're serious about that, maybe." And then you can dial it back if you keep the horse going, "Oh, I'm to be feeling of you because you really are needing my feet to move." Then you can dial it back and find a spot where you are effective and the horse is flowing. And then you can reward the thought because there's actual thought happening rather than just kind of, okay, move a little bit. So all of these things, you're kind of swinging a pendulum, not in the, it's not a bad thing to have the pendulum swing. And that's part of it.
Well, and we think of like Gary's comments. I've heard him, let's say a pen full of horses, and he'll be talking about each one of them. And his favorite are horses that move around a lot and are keen, like wide awake.
Hmm.
Well, of course, because you have all these molecules moving around, and then it's just like
And the thought's already kind of there. Like you
they're
said,
all
the horse more than mule. They're like wanting to tie in. Yeah.
then it's just such an easy deal if you have so many things on the that you can choose from. On the other hand, just you'll think this is funny, I bet. I'm writing novella, and we're really up leveling some movements. One simple one that you would think is our walk canners. Okay, like really round and powerful, really from the hind leg. My little lip is on. Just imagine me cussing because it's so exasperating. She can do so many things. Like her piaffe is she basically, it's just as easy for her to choose piaffe as a canter depart. Equally as easy, perhaps easier to do her little piaffe. And I'm sitting up there going, God damn it. It's been so long since I've ridden some of these movements that I'm scrambling to think like, well, first of all, I'm of course tempted. Second of all, there's another thing. So Piaf is there, which I don't think I should. I would love to just snatch that, but or gather that, uh, and a pretty canter depart off the hind leg, and there's even a flying change, a tempi like in there. Obviously, if the Piaf is there too, and but then the other one is a really round trot, a little more uphill. She has a nice long trot you've seen. And if I have a lot of space and room, we can use our nose arcs or whatever, but we're working to like just be able to step up from the walk into a really round, um, but shorter trot, right? So these three things. And she's flipping back and forth because they're so easy for her. And
Hmm.
I'm mentally so behind in my feel and my mind. Like, it's like chasing a ball, ping ponging, and I'm consistently late, like a puck. Like if you were following the puck. Son of a bitch. Like, luckily, we love each other and she's calmer about, making mistakes or not having the answer or, the complication. Because that's the other thing for her is like everything's so easy physically that, and really from her perspective, I just have been asking like the dumbest things, but oh my God, you just feel like an idiot chasing the ball. And it's like at a million miles an hour. And I just wanna sit there and be like, "I'm sorry, hold on." But if I do that, then she's not gonna know. She's like, she's a little bit too, um, concerned still to be able to do that. Meaning, like, to just stop and just be like, "Let's start again," you know? Like, we have to kinda find something. And she's still a little bit fixates on one answer too, like, not quite in the middle in terms of waiting for me to catch the fuck up, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I really do feel like I'm like a dumb Labrador. This is all happening at Mach
Ooh.
1,000, you guys, too, but it's like terrible. Like, bring me the quarter horse.
What's
Oh, it's
in what's
crazy.
interesting is feeling Rooster like it's not loose and forward as I like, but as he's sorting out kind of the same thing, mostly the canter depart and stepping up and everything really coming up and down through the hind end. When he gets a little, it's like, wow, he could pee off really easy once this settles in mentally. Like you just have to capture that, just like you're selecting. Okay, there you found it. We're trotting out of here. Okay, there you found it. The the trajectory is up. The trajectory up and forward into a step up and just lope off. Because right now he's just going, which is it, right? But he's really trying to find it being from the hind end, and so then you're like, for a bit, you're going, yep, hind end. That's it. Yep, that's it. And
Exactly.
then um i- i- once he's thinking in that direction, you're going, okay, but that's it toward this. Like right now, this is what we're selecting. And then if that gets to get too balled up, or that gets to assuming like it's got to be this, it's got to be this, like going, okay, well, let's maybe not that, like flow out to it. But that searching, and honestly, I'm not even feeling the million miles an hour. We're not really. I'm not even trying to be that close because that is so far away from that. And he's just it's all available. Like I can feel once we're there, it'll be like we could do that, no problem. Um, just physically, like he could access that. Um, uh, but right now, it's just settling into putting them on the menu as isolated movements, right?
With appropriate body cues.
Yeah.
That go to each of them.
Well, and that for me too is like having the body cues be consistent, you know? Yeah. Yeah, there I definitely feel late. Like, I wasn't even, he was ahead of me. I wasn't even really there yet, or I'm here, and because he's now thinking something else, or I've not had the door open enough into this movement. Now we're kind of going up and down, yeah.
Exactly. These girls are like, welcome to how it is for regular folks every day. Yeah, I mean, see, so long as we're pushing the envelope, it's the same. It's always the same, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, it's so funny. And I remember, Michael, you and I remember, like, back in the day, we'd be talking like this about other things, like the positions of the pelvis, like we would know, or it would be like intellectually, you know what you're doing, but
This is what we want all the feet to do. How in the hell do you get the balance to find that? Like, where do you push? Where do you shape? Where do you release? How much forward? Yeah.
and there's nothing else for it but to just laugh.
I
And
I remember the horse. I remember right where I was that we were having that conversation with the basically just the balance hindquarter yield, and so crude at that point what I was even targeting and what I was aware of, which is why it was so difficult because it wasn't the whole picture I was targeting, and yet I was trying to accomplish something while allowing a lot of things to be out of whack and out of balance. And yeah, it's kind of crazy.
it's the same, I guess, is my point, you guys.
Yes, it
Like
is.
the same.
Well, that's Corey's point, and then you took it up as your own. Yes.
Well, but then, no, no, no. What I mean to say is, no matter how far along, it's like, okay, yeah, they're in different situations, but the exasperation and the you just
Yes.
have to laugh at the ineptitude that you or what am I trying to say? Ineffectual or like you just not. And I think it's
The
a good.
clumsiness.
Yeah, don't you think, Michael, if your mind is a little bit ahead, that's where it should be. Your intellect should probably be a little bit ahead of what you can actually do. That's fine. But you have to know that you're trying to get it to follow along so that your intellect doesn't get so far, that you can't actually, cuz then you're not really going to be able to think deeply about it anyway, but
Well, and then there's times though, and you talked about this the last time you were kind of annoyed with the idea of trying to explain anything where you're just kind of there isn't an intellect component. It's just like feeling for things that you're not even sure what you're feeling for or what's going to shape up, but you know there's something there that's important. Um, but yes, I'd say generally you're at the spot of like, well, I don't know. I would say it helps to be in that spot. That's why I've pushed for
mhm.
a long time and years ago. Like you gotta try to explain this in words. I mean, that's why you have a coach, for God's sakes, to to be eyes on the ground, but the eyes on the ground have to be they can't just be eyes on the ground. They're like, cool, wow, nice. Like, what is nice? Like, what are you seeing? What should I be feeling for? How am I getting this? How could I get it better? You know,
You guys have seen the videos of Tom Dorrance, right? The old, and he's like making the gestures and like, because yeah, it's like read the book. Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, just in regards to me oscillating between being able to verbalize it to share, but also to experience it. One of the things you guys can remind me of the next time this happens is like with the flower experience, I was so far and needed to be so far away from my conscious mind. Like next time I do it, I'm just gonna need to, and who, it doesn't necessarily mean taming a wild one. It could be any particular experience. It's like, don't try to be both people at once in that moment, and because it's like it's almost like leaving the planet or leaving the room or something, you're just not a part of that world for the time that you're so unconscious. But you know me, I always kind of want to talk about it.
well,
but I don't
This is different because it's not quite unconscious. It's actually distinctly conscious, but something I've been aware of recently. And wild horse is a little bit, or is a kind of a good example, but you could probably apply this generally for developing a feel. Like, let's just say approaching a horse that is either wild or pretty sensitive, maybe not wild, or continues to be sort of wild. Um, eh, Walking in with a neutrality,
have a
um,
see ya.
because you can walk in with a presence that's intentionally minimal, and that can feel like pressure,
That's
right?
right. Mm-hmm.
And I just noticed that recently
Yeah.
of like when I set a lily pad or something with a horse like that, I can go very, you know, neutral, like open space, right? But when I approach a horse like that, I'm I've got this feeling that isn't as neutral because you're ready to go, oh, I'm going to step here and block that, or I'm going to step back and draw there. And you're still have this dance of your energies moving in and around. And that to that horse feels like pressure that might um, kind of be repelling them. They might kind of feel, based on their level of understanding, that they have to respond to it, but they're not feeling entirely let down, which is what you need them to be to just approach and pet them. So I don't know. I've just noticed that, and then different but similar riding, having the kind of presence that I've thought about with riding or just creating any feel anywhere, just having this like energy exude from you in order to direct the horse that's not obviously physically moving an arm or a flag or whatever. It's just a presence, and being quite intentional and being fairly good at directing with that, and um, helping the horse key into that by maybe being more physically um, obvious, or making contact for the horse to key into, okay, he means something by this. Okay, we're all doing that. But then it becomes making sure you move from that to truly flowing like water, where you back off that intentionality, or even like I'm saying, moving through the herd, and you just kind of lift your hand. Like, does it get to the point where you literally just walk through? And I don't know that it is, because I don't know that I've, like, when I walk through the herd, I am kind of projecting like, hey, clear out. And that's fine. That's fair. Like, they're standing there eating. I probably do have to have some presence. It's like, come on, I'm moving through here, go away, rather than just I'm casually walking in here. But when your horse is connected and feeling of you, going from a here's presence and it's going this way and it's going that way, to just having it be, I guess, now that I think about it, very similar to with the Gamo. And if I was doing again that ride where, I mean, you were basically like, don't touch. I mean, it was completely loose
Perfect.
rein and very round, and it was a weird feeling. But if I had even there, because that was touching on it, but if I had the mentality I'm describing now, doing that, where um, it released from anything being obviously energy and intentional, and just, I mean, kind of the age old just think it and they do it sort of thing, but just
That was a top, I would
being neutral, right? Being neutral in movement, I guess similar to the way you would in a circling game per se. Like there's energy, but you are neutral, letting the horse go around you, maintain gait. But it isn't in and the horse is in motion and you are in motion with the horse, but there isn't a presence driving
more of a draw. I was thinking about that.
or directing in any way. Yeah.
Passing the
Yeah.
rope behind your back, changing hands is such a draw. It just absolutely is, you know, and until you don't have a lead rope, of course. Forward and around. That's pretty handy when you switch hands. Like, then it's this one is forward and around so that you can switch hands the other way. Yeah, you're so right. Just in case you guys wanted even more encouragement. But
I don't know though. Like, yes, that is like another thing. But given I'm putting that in words as I experience it, I don't feel like that's terribly inaccessible to go, huh, okay, what would that mean? Right? My horse is responding. I have this presence. Like, to what degree can I just move freely without super intentionally directing something and have it still work? I don't know. Maybe no one said that to me, at least not in words that that, I mean, yeah. So,
could
yeah.
you have understood those words if you hadn't had that ride?
Well, it wasn't that ride that locked that in for me. That's thinking back on that ride.
Yes, but if you hadn't had that ride to think back on.
Perhaps, but it dawned on me specifically with approaching a horse that is chronically skeptical. And rather than going, "Oh, you're good," and like, just go completely devoid of any feeling of presence or direction.
Yeah, presence and direction, but there is a stickiness, a viscosity to the feeling of um being in that neutral, to where you are a little, there's going to be a feel between you and the horse that you offer. Even I think if you're passing through a herd very neutrally, it's like if the seas are going to part for you, there's a viscosity there, or yeah, right? Like there's some sort of something there.
Mhm,
Even I think maybe what you're talking about is like the desire there, or the need to make it happen, or wanting to make it happen, versus if I suppose that's the dream, is that you don't have to. And maybe thinking back to that Degamo ride, which by the way was probably one of the top 5. I mean, it's so high on the list of experiences I've ever had riding a horse. Um that's so good. That was such a good day. It might be the peak, honestly, for him, his life, that, because he's older now. I mean, who knows? Mentally, emotionally, physically, where he was. And Michael had set that up, you guys, I must say. Remember I got on him that time and I was like, oh, he feels good to start with. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
nothing I need to do. Yeah.
But um, you know what I'm saying? Like you still have to be up there, you have to be sticky so that you are a part of it all, but you're not you're very, you follow what I'm saying, that I there's an angst, I think, that one can either have in varying degrees, or
Mhm.
agenda, some people would say, you know and then also that neutral place, but that neutral place has love and confidence, like, or contentment, I think, too. um Maybe. What do you guys think?
Peace.
Peace. Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm. Yes, that's correct. A lack of. projection of all the shit that, you need and want and are trying to get and, you know.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a game changer for me, like all the way along and across the board, because I think the angst or the intensity with which I have developed my skill, and the whole way along was developing skill, that being a component of what I mean, I was using that to develop a lot of skills. But I think that's going to be a game changer, because I think that's a piece that I did not put my finger on thinking of it that way. So,
Well, let's leave it at that for this week.
yeah.
Because you said hard stop.
Yeah.
And
So we must have had an interesting enough conversation, because Joanne and Julie are here, and I told them, if the conversation's too boring, watch the show closely, because I'll wink 3 times if I need you to like come in here and interrupt and give us something to talk about. But this was a great conversation to me. I enjoyed it. So
the implication
we're,
being,
we're
yeah,
what's that?
implication being,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're gonna go ride some horses now.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, um, tell everybody I said hi. Don't let me forget to buy a plane ticket for the love of Pete. I better do
Yes.
that. It's not on my radar for because normally I'm doing so many travel bookings that but I'm out of practice. So, all right, everybody, thank you for being with us this week. If you want to check out that blog on the safety check and liberty, you can do that at emmadailyclanblog.com. We are hoping to see you at Michael's, whomever in Wisconsin, uh, next month. 1 month, 1 month and like 2 weeks or something. So 6 weeks. Yeah,
I think it's less than that.
yeah, it's coming. It's coming up. I'm so
Month and
excited.
a week.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So Michael and I will see you next Thursday morning at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
8:30 Central.
Have a good
Have a
week.
great week.
Bye.